Welcome to the Urban Herald. We're your team, here to bring you the kind of deep analysis you won't find anywhere else.
And today, we are definitely diving deep. We're getting into Debbie Show's debut novel, Paper Roses.
Which is just generating so much conversations. This huge, sweeping family story, multi-generational.
Exactly. But what we're doing today, it's more than just a standard book review. We're really looking under the hood.
Right. Think of it as a psychological autopsy. We want to explore why this book is hitting so hard, especially around themes of inherited trauma.
And we want to give you, the listener, a real shortcut to understanding its significance, why it's being called one of the year's most impactful books, without spoiling the plot, of course.
A huge part of that significance comes from the author herself, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Debbie Show isn't just a novelist. She's a licensed marriage and family therapist, an MFT.
And that's not just, like, a fun fact.
No, it's fundamental. It informs everything. You feel this clinical, this really systematic insight into why families work, or maybe more accurately, why they don't work the way they do. It lifts the story way beyond melodrama.
And the sheer scale of it.
It's massive. We're talking 1940s Morocco.
All the way through to contemporary California. Decades, continents.
So to really get a handle on the generational aspect, the trauma aspect, we have to start where the book itself seems to start, with its roots in truth.
Yeah, the source material we looked at really hammers this home. Paper Roses isn't just inspired by reality, it's deeply, deeply rooted in actual family events.
Right. It's described as a Paper Roses book, true story, and knowing that, it just gives everything this extra layer of weight, you know?
It really does. It makes you realize these patterns, these psychological dynamics, they aren't just plot devices. They're lived experiences.
And you see that raw honesty immediately in the dedication. It's incredibly arresting.
It is. She writes, "All I can say, Dan, is that we did it. The cycle ends with us."
Wow. Just reading that, it stops you for a second. It completely reframes the whole experience of reading the book.
It turns it from a novel into, I don't know, an act of testimony, an act of defiance.
Exactly. Defiance is a good word. Think about what the cycle ends with us actually means in the context of this story. We're talking about cycles of abandonment, addiction, scapegoating, really profound emotional wounds passed down.
So that dedication is basically saying, we saw the pattern, we did the work, we stopped it here.
Precisely. It implies this immense, conscious, probably painful effort to map out those destructive family dynamics and consciously choose a different path. It's fighting against what might feel like, genetic or environmental destiny.
Which is incredibly powerful. It elevates the book beyond just telling a family story. It feels like it's offering a kind of, maybe a blueprint for interruption.
I think so. And that ambition, that scale, it puts it right up there with some major hitters in contemporary fiction.
Yeah, our sources mentioned comparisons to big emotionally resonant bestsellers, like Kristen Hanna's The Women, or maybe Eric Puchner's Dream State.
Right, books that manage to be both intimate character studies and these sweeping historical narratives that look at how huge events fundamentally change families, change their psychological DNA for generations.
Okay, so before we get into the characters themselves, we need to talk about that historical stage you mentioned.
Yeah.
1940s Morocco.
Yes. Crucial, because this isn't the Western Front. It's not London during the Blitz. It's a setting, a perspective that historical fiction rarely explores with this kind of depth.
And the novel really throws you into the thick of it, doesn't it? The sources highlighted some specific, vivid details from the early chapters.
Absolutely. You've got Nazi soldiers visible, patrolling train stations. There's this constant, palpable threat hanging over the traditional Jewish quarter.
Because this is Morocco under the Vichy regime.
Exactly. And it's important to remember what that meant. It wasn't just German occupation. It was the collaborating French colonial government imposing Axis policies.
Which meant specific anti-Jewish laws.
Yes. Systemic discrimination. Quotas limiting jobs, restrictions on where people could live or travel, and the ever-present threat of deportation. It wasn't just ambient danger, it was targeted legal oppression layered onto the existing complexities of colonial North Africa.
What I found really compelling, though, is how the novel uses this setting, not just for threat, but to explore the nuances of the North African Jewish experience.
It avoids simplistic narratives. It shows the complex reality of Muslim-Jewish relations at that time, sometimes supportive, sometimes strained, often built on shared community and economic interdependence, even under immense external pressure.
It feels like a really important counter-narrative to more modern conflict-focused portrayals.
Definitely. And show handles this complex historical backdrop structurally in a really interesting way.
Through the dual timeline structure.
Right. Which is incredibly intricate. It weaves back and forth almost seamlessly between Yasmina, the matriarch in 1940s Morocco, and her granddaughter Abigail, who we meet in 1970s California.
And that structure isn't just clever, it feels like it's making an argument.
I think it is. It's saying the past isn't past. The wounds Yasmina suffers in the 40s directly inform or even cause the struggles Abigail faces in the 70s. It's like cause and effect playing out across generations simultaneously on the page.
The immersion in both timelines is helped by just incredible sensory detail.
Oh, completely. When you're in Morocco with Yasmina, you feel it. The sun-baked landscapes, the smells of the souk spices, leather, it's all there. And the Sirocco wind.
That hot desert wind feels almost like a character itself.
It does. It's this force of nature that feels ancient and potentially destructive, mirroring the instability of her world.
And then, bang, the timeline shifts, and you're dropped into this jarringly different sensory world, 1970s California.
Yeah, and the specificity is just as intense, but totally different. Show uses these pitch-perfect cultural markers. You can practically taste the tap cola.
Smell the hot Sam's pretzels at the mall. Hear the electric company on the TV in the background.
And the smells shift dramatically, too. From spices and desert dust to, like, the cloying mix of Aquanet hairspray, maybe some cheap perfume, and the lingering smell of pot smoke from the parents' parties. It's sensory whiplash.
That contrast itself tells a story, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It highlights how trauma travels, but its expression changes dramatically based on the environment. In Morocco, the threats are often external, historical war, poverty, systemic oppression.
Whereas in California, for Abigail, the threat feels much more internal, domestic. It's the chaos within the suburban family unit.
Exactly. You move from this vast, ancient landscape to the kind of claustrophobic pressure cooker of a dysfunctional American home. That geographical shift is thematic. It shows the evolution of the trauma.
And that meticulous detail, that grounding in place and time, is why the characters feel so real, so lived in. Let's start with Yasmina.
Right. She's the anchor.
Yeah.
The matriarch.
Yeah.
The novel's spiritual core, really, starting back in the 1940s.
And her beginning is just brutal. It sets the stage for everything that follows.
It really does. She's introduced not just as poor or struggling, but as a child bride, only 15 years old.
And then cast out. Discarded by the very family she'd been serving.
Yeah. That initial betrayal, being deemed worthless, disposable, right at that vulnerable age, it's the foundational wound. It's the kind of trauma that could just break a person completely.
But it doesn't break her. It forges her.
Exactly. Her strength isn't loud or rebellious, though. It's quieter, deeper, rooted in her spiritual life.
Which the novel portrays as this really interesting blend. Syncretic was the term used.
Yes, syncretic, meaning it's a fusion, a blending of different religious or cultural traditions. In Yasmina's case, it's this mix of Islamic, Jewish, and local folk beliefs and practices.
So how does that actually look in her day-to-day life? Is she consciously mixing them?
It seems more intuitive, more about practical protection and finding solace wherever she can, like her devotion to the Hand of Fatima amulet.
Which has significance in both Muslim and North African Jewish traditions, right? Protection against the evil eye.
Precisely. And then there's that moment when she's caught in the Sirocco, that terrifying wind. The book describes her murmuring prayers not just to God, but also invoking Shu, the old Egyptian god of the winds.
Wow. So her faith isn't about strict rules or doctrine.
Not at all. It's about resilience. It's about using whatever spiritual tools are available to her to find grounding, protection, endurance in a world that feels incredibly unstable. Her faith is her anchor.
Okay, so if Yasmina embodies that kind of resilience forged in historical hardship, then her granddaughter Abigail seems to represent something different, the pain of inheriting that trauma.
Yes. Abigail is living in the fallout zone. She's the generational scapegoat, bearing the weight of all that unprocessed pain from the previous generation's chaotic lives.
And the source of that scapegoating is heartbreakingly direct. Her own mother, Nanette.
Nanette explicitly labels her, calls her Pancake One.
Pancake One.
Yeah, the first pancake you make, the one that sticks to the pan, the imperfect trial run you have to tolerate before you get the perfect one.
Oh, that's devastating. And her sister Nikki is Pancake Two.
Nikki is Pancake too, the perfect one. And that casual, cruel nickname becomes the defining label for Abigail. It dictates her entire self-concept, frames her as the family problem, the one who carries all their dysfunction.
That must force her into a state of constant high alert.
Absolutely. Hypervigilance becomes her default setting. She has to learn to read moods, anticipate explosions, navigate this emotional minefield just to survive day to day.
And books become her escape.
Books, poetry, her imagination. It's not just a pastime for her, it's a lifeline. It's the only place she can find order, sense, structure when her actual home life is so chaotic and unpredictable. It's her sanctuary.
So those survival skills,
Yeah.
she develops the observation, the emotional intelligence, that rich inner world. They actually become her strengths later on.
Exactly. That's the fascinating transformation. The very tools she forged in the fire of that trauma become the skills she uses to understand and eventually break free from it. She basically spent her childhood doing field research on human pain.
Which makes her eventual choice to become a psychologist feel so inevitable.
Utterly necessary. It's like she had to find the language, the framework, the systemic understanding to finally name and dismantle the machine that hurt her. It wasn't just a career choice, it was a survival imperative.
There's one scene the sources highlighted that just crystallizes her whole struggle, that desperate need for escape and normalcy.
The jump from the window.
Yes, leaping from her second-story bedroom window.
Just to get to cheerleading practice, something so normal, so all-American.
But the details are horrifying.
Yeah.
Her uniform catches on a nail. She's jumping over this ditch.
An old irrigation trench, yeah. Apparently it was barely covered, known to be full of poison, a place where deformed animals were found.
Let's just pause on that image because it's incredibly loaded.
It really is. It's pure metaphor. The poison ditch, the misshapen animals, that's the toxic environment she's steeped in, the potential outcome the world expects for her.
And she's literally leaping over it, risking physical harm.
Sacrificing her body, tearing her uniform, that symbol of belonging, trying desperately to reach something clean, something ordinary, something safe on the other side. It's her entire childhood struggle captured in one desperate physical act.
It's a perfect bridge, really, to talking about the psychological framework of the novel, that MFT lens you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, because that leap, that desperation, it's exactly the kind of thing Sho's professional background allows her to analyze with such clinical precision. It's not just treated as a dramatic incident.
Right. It avoids melodrama because there's this understanding of the underlying mechanics. It's not just bad behavior, it's dysfunction operating according to predictable systemic patterns.
Exactly. You see concepts like attachment disorders playing out in the relationship between Nanette and Abigail, that profound emotional distance, the lack of secure bonding.
You see narcissistic traits.
Clearly. Especially in Nanette's relentless focus on image, her seeming inability to genuinely empathize with Abigail's pain or needs. It's all about how things look.
And Abigail's hypervigilance, her need to maneuver around landmines, as the text apparently puts it, that's framed as a survival adaptation.
Yes, a complex, intelligent adaptation to an untenable situation. And there's that chilling comparison made later.
Between Abigail and her sister Nikki.
Yeah. Abigail reflects that she had to learn to dodge landmines, but Nikki, born later into maybe even more chaos, had to learn to duck to avoid hand grenades.
Wow. That suggests the danger just escalated, that the parents' unresolved issues got worse over time.
It points to the progressive nature of untreated trauma within a family system, which is why understanding the parents, Nanette and Hugh, is so crucial. They aren't just villains.
No, the MFT perspective forces you to see them as deeply wounded people themselves, caught in their own cycles. Let's talk about Nanette.
Right. She's trapped, utterly consumed by maintaining this perfect image. The source material mentioned her past as a model, the orange Fanta girl in Morocco.
Yeah. And that seems to define her whole adult life. The perfect hair, the expensive clothes, the Jackie O look, the Holston pantsuit. It's all a frantic mask.
A mask for what feels like profound maternal inadequacy, deep emotional voids.
And the novel traces that inadequacy back to a specific childhood wound, doesn't it?
It does. It's not just vague unhappiness. It pinpoints her reliance on diet pills, her emotional coldness, even her shocking admission that having a kid, meaning Abigail, just doesn't suit her. It all connects back to her older brother, Henri.
What did Henri do?
He taunted her, cruelly, specifically about her skin being darker than other family members, implying she was less beautiful, less valuable.
So that specific, maybe racialized childhood wound festered.
Exactly. It planted the seed of deep insecurity, of never being good enough that she seemingly never processed. And instead of healing it, she weaponized her own resulting image obsession and inadequacy against her own daughter.
Passing the wound down, it's a perfect tragic illustration of that cycle.
It really is. And then there's the father, Hugh.
Who sounds like such a complex, tragic figure.
Very much so. He starts as this charming young American airman in Morocco. The dashing figure who marries Nanette offers the escape to America.
But that charm sours over time.
Completely. He becomes the dad presiding over these chaotic, drug-fueled parties. The source mentioned creepy friends. The home environment becomes unpredictable, unsafe.
Yet the novel apparently shows he has genuine love for Abigail.
That's the heartbreaking part. There's real affection there. The review mentioned him treasuring her singing Paper Roses, the song that gives the book its title.
So he loves her, but he can't protect her.
Precisely. His love is real, but it's ultimately powerless against his own addictions, his own chaos, his inability to provide stability or safety. His story becomes this really poignant look at how good intentions aren't enough when trauma and addiction take hold. Loving isn't the same as parenting.
Which brings us to the other child, Nikki, Pancake 2.
Right. And she's fascinating because she throws a wrench into any simple victim of circumstance narrative.
How so? She grew up in the same house, same parents.
Exactly. Same toxic system.
Yeah.
But her response is radically different from Abigail's. It really forces you to grapple with the whole nature versus nurture question.
So where Abigail internalizes and analyzes, Nikki
externalizes. She rebels. There's this striking image of her as a 4-year-old escaping the house naked on a big wheel, just completely fearless.
Wow. So she just rejects the chaos, runs from it.
Seems like it. While Abigail becomes hyper-responsible, academic, observant, Nikki seems more impulsive, maybe more resilient on the surface, or perhaps just armored in a different way. Her path diverges dramatically.
Which raises huge questions. Why the different responses? Is it just innate temperament? Birth order? Did Abigail somehow shield Nikki by absorbing the worst of it?
The novel doesn't seem to offer easy answers, which is part of its strength. It shows that even within a deeply dysfunctional system, individual agency, temperament, something inherent, plays a role. It complicates the idea that trauma completely determines destiny.
So survival looks different for different people. Some analyze the maze, like Abigail. Some just try to smash through the walls, maybe like Nikki.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so moving from the characters to the broader themes, the absolute core seems to be this idea of generational trauma as a tangible inheritance.
Yes, not just a metaphor. The novel argues it's a living force, something active in the present, not just a story about the past. It's like inheriting emotional DNA.
We've traced that cascade, haven't we? Yasmina's initial betrayal and abandonment.
Shapes her ability to trust, her emotional availability, which impacts her daughter, Nanette.
Nanette's resulting insecurity and need for external validation then poisons her relationship with her own daughters.
Right. It ripples outwards. Abigail and Nikki are living with the consequences of wounds inflicted decades earlier in a different country under different circumstances. The novel shows how we inherit these psychological templates, ways of relating, triggers for shame, patterns of avoidance or conflict.
But, and this feels crucial, it's not presented as inescapable fate.
Yeah.
That dedication again. The cycle ends with us.
Exactly. That's the counterweight. The novel is powerful because it shows both the crushing weight of inherited trauma and the possibility of consciously interrupting it.
Through Abigail's journey, essentially, her choice to study psychology, to understand the why behind the pain.
Yes. And her determination, which we see later, to raise her own son, Uli, differently. It highlights the immense emotional labor involved in breaking those cycles. It's not easy. It often goes against every ingrained impulse. It requires deliberate, conscious choice.
Healing isn't just something that happens. It's something you do.
Precisely. Another major theme is this exploration of cultural identity, especially in the context of diaspora.
Yasmina's journey is central here. From her Amazi Berber roots to Moroccan cities, then abruptly transplanted to American suburbia.
She lives between worlds, never fully belonging anywhere. And Nanette, her daughter, seems to actively reject the Moroccan heritage.
In her desperation to assimilate, to become the perfect American wife, she cuts off that connection for Abigail.
Which makes Abigail's eventual decision to take her own son, Uli, back to Morocco so significant. It's an act of reclamation, of finally seeking out the source code, the roots of the family story her mother tried to erase.
And it allows the novel to offer that counter-narrative we discussed earlier, the complex reality of North African Jewish life. the relationships with Muslim neighbors, challenging simpler narratives.
Right. Yasmina carries her heritage, her syncretic faith with her, but in America, it just marks her as perpetually other.
But the ending offers a sense of integration, doesn't it? With Yuli's daughter's name.
Oh, yes. Jasmina Altagracia. It's beautiful. It blends Yuli's Moroccan Jewish heritage, naming her after his great-grandmother Yasmina with his partner Mariah's Dominican roots, Altagracia being a significant name there.
So identity isn't about purity, it's about weaving these multiple strands together.
Exactly. Creating something new and whole from complex, sometimes painful inheritances. It's integration, not assimilation or erasure.
There's one more theme the sources really emphasize, which I think separates this from more sentimental family stories, the focus on economics and gender.
Yes. This is crucial. Show is unflinching about how material reality, economic vulnerability shapes women's choices and their experiences of trauma.
Starting with Yasmina, her entire life path seems dictated by her need to be employable.
Absolutely. After being cast out, her survival depends entirely on her ability to find and keep work, usually domestic work. Her value is tied to her labor. Her security, such as it is, comes from being indispensable to the family she serves. Every decision, marriage, children, is framed by that fundamental economic precariousness.
And for Nanette, it's different, but just as limiting. Her value is tied to her appearance.
Entirely. Her orange Fantagirl past becomes her present reality. Her security relies on maintaining her beauty, on her marriage to Hugh, the American provider. She lacks skills, professional independence. So her obsession with the facade isn't just vanity. It's a survival strategy tied to her perceived economic worth as a wife.
Which makes Abigail's path even more significant.
Yes. Her pursuit of education, her career in psychology, it's not just about emotional healing. It's about achieving the economic independence that neither her mother nor her grandmother ever had.
That financial freedom is what finally gives her the power to make different choices, healthier choices, to truly break the cycle.
Exactly. Economic independence is presented almost as a prerequisite for escaping that kind of deep-seated generational dysfunction. It provides options they never had.
So we've talked about the story, the themes, the psychology. But we should also touch on the way the story is told, the literary craft itself.
Definitely. Because it's not just a powerful story, it's constructed in a really sophisticated way.
We mentioned the dual timeline, but the choice of perspective within those timelines is interesting too. Yasmina's is first person.
Yes. Intimate. Immediate. You're right there inside her experience, feeling the raw impact of events as they happened. It grounds you in the origin point of the trauma.
Whereas Abigail's sections are third person.
Right. Slightly more distanced. Which feels appropriate, doesn't it? It mirrors the psychological distance she needs to cultivate to survive, and later, to analyze her family's history. It allows for that clinical observation we talked about.
So you get both the raw feeling of the past and the analyzed perspective on the present, often in the same book, sometimes just chapters apart.
Exactly. It creates this layered effect, showing how past and present are constantly informing each other, and the structure itself, the way the timelines parallel and echo each other.
It trusts the reader. You see Yasmina's betrayal, and then you see patterns of scapegoating around Abigail decades later, and you make the connection. The book doesn't explicitly spell out every link.
No, it lets the echoes resonate. It works like a puzzle you piece together, which makes the discoveries feel more profound. And she brings in other elements, too.
Like podcast transcripts, court documents.
Yeah, these sort of modern, almost documentary fragments. It suggests that memory, especially traumatic family memory, isn't neat or linear. It's fractured, pieced together from different kinds of evidence. It feels very true to how we often reconstruct complex histories.
And underpinning all that structural complexity is that incredible sensory writing we mentioned earlier.
Always. Whether it's the smell of Morocco or the taste of 70s junk food, you are there. That sensory grounding keeps you anchored. Even as the timelines shift and the psychological insights deepen, it's masterful, really.
So putting it all together, who is this book for? Who needs this deep dive, this knowledge we've been exploring?
Well, if you're drawn to stories about family, about how the past shapes the present,
Especially if you appreciate psychological depth over easy answers. If you're interested in family systems, how they work, how they break,
then this is absolutely essential reading. It's also for anyone who understands or needs to understand that healing isn't a neat destination you just arrive at.
right, it's a process, often messy, ongoing. The book seems to argue that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply choose not to repeat a pattern.
That takes immense courage, that conscious choice, but we do need to include that cautionary note from the review.
Yes, this is not beach reading, it's demanding. It requires emotional engagement.
And if you're particularly sensitive to depictions of narcissistic abuse, childhood neglect, really difficult family dynamics, especially involving kids, you need to approach it with care. It doesn't sanitize the trauma.
It depicts it honestly, which is part of its power, but also requires reader awareness.
Definitely. But despite that necessary caution, the Urban Herald gives Paper Roses our absolute highest recommendation.
Yeah. It succeeds on so many levels simultaneously. It's a compelling historical novel, it's a sharp psychological study, and it's ultimately a testament to resilience.
It manages to honor the past, acknowledge the depth of the wounds, without romanticizing any of it, and without letting the trauma have the final word. It truly feels like, as the review put it, literature that heals even as it wounds.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, we always like to leave you, our listener, with something to chew on, a final thought that takes the book's ideas a step further.
Right. Building on that central theme of inherited psychological templates, if this novel is right, if we really do inherit emotional patterns, defense mechanisms, ways of relating, almost like we inherit eye color,
Hmm.
think about your own life for a moment. Is there a specific emotional response you have? A pattern in your relationships? A way you handle conflict? Or maybe avoid it? Could that possibly be an unconscious echo from your parents or even your grandparents? A legacy you didn't even realize you were carrying?
That's a challenging thought.
It is. And the follow-up question, inspired by Abigail's journey and that powerful dedication, is this. If you can identify a potential inherited pattern, what conscious choice, what small or large act of emotional work might be needed today to understand its roots, integrate that history, and maybe begin to transform it? How do you turn that inherited pain, perhaps, into wisdom for your own future and for those who come after you?
That really captures the journey Paper Roses invites us all to consider. A powerful place to end.